Meeting. Thank you. Yes, that's great. Let's call this meeting of the Parks and Public Works Committee to order.
F1.
City Clerk Dean, will you take roll?
Yes. Everyone's present.
We've got everybody here. We've got Councilman Johnson online.
Oh, there he is.
All right, great. Then the first thing is agenda approval. Anybody see anything in the agenda that they want to change, take out because it's too darn long? Anything you want to add?
Looks good.
Okay. Councilman Johnson, you good? And we'll take his silence as a sign.
Oh, I gave a thumbs up. Yes. Good.
All right. All right. Well, then let's start with public comment. Is there anybody in the building who would like to make public comment or online? Just raise your hand. Let us know you're here. And all right. Better looking Brian Holloway. Come on up. State your name and city that you live in.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Benson. My name is Brian Holloway. I'm the other Brian Holloway. I got to meet Councilman Holloway for the first time tonight. That was quite exciting. I live in Snoqualmie. I live up by Gene Hansen Park, actually. And I'm here today because I want to say no to the pool. I think I speak on behalf of myself, my neighbors, and a large fraction of the community to say that while the pool is a good idea in concept, it is something that we don't need, we can't afford, is not unique, and does not actually meet the sustainable mission of the city. So let me go into some of those details. I don't think we need a pool. The pool is not a unique feature to the local area. There are multiple pool opportunities, both public and private entities where you can go swim. A very good example that was brought up recently online is the 24-hour fitness center in Issaquah, which has, according to their website, a $40 a month membership fee. So for a family of 4, you're looking at roughly $160 a month. There is actually a pool, I believe, Mayor, you mentioned it at the last city council meeting, the YMCA pool in Sammamish. It has a fully functioning capability for the current river to support any use for the elderly, for kids, for learning to swim. The membership according to the YMCA website, the YMCA membership that you get, which by the way, is a roughly $280 a month for a family of 4 to the Snoqualmie, is actually for the greater Seattle YMCA, which gives you access to the Sammamish pool. At the last city council member and at the last meeting of this committee, there were some guiding principles put up associated with the pool.
Keep going.
I think that those were really good guiding principles, but I think stepping back and holistically looking at the opportunity of the pool is not the best way to utilize over $4,200 per household of city money, especially when you are looking at needing another as noted at the last council meeting, another $2,500 per household to fulfill the estimated construction cost. To hand over a pool to an organization that is going to charge a family of 4 somewhere between $270 to $290 a month for access to that pool. That is a very disturbing activity that I think is not sustainable for this city. My job is to run a private equity fund. I actually run 2. We take good ideas and try to bring them to the marketplace. I think your job is very similar as a council, as a committee. One of the things that I have learned in my job is that sometimes there are good ideas that sound really attractive, but they're just not viable, and you have to walk away. I would encourage the committee and the city council to consider walking away from the pool because it is not going to meet the city's needs. It's not sustainable in our budget. A quarter of the CIP budget going to one project to partially fund one project is not a good use of city resources. And I thank you for your consideration for the time.
You. Anybody care to comment? All right, thank you for your comments. We appreciate your perspective. Okay, let's move on to approval of the minutes dated November 7th, 2023. Anybody see any problem with those?
No comments or revisions.
No comments.
All right, then those are approved. And let's move on to discussion. Hey, there's a thing on here about the community center. There's a presentation.
All right. Hello, committee members. So I'm here to give you an update today on the community center expansion project. Based on where we were, where we left off after the last council meeting, we heard direction from council that you wanted to see some additional information about how we went from community input through programming to transfer that into building design. And so that is the thrust of this presentation today that I'm going to give you. I wanted to briefly touch on our project timeline so far. These are the times which we have been to Public Works Committee, Parks and Events Commission, City Council, and our city advisory, actually the advisory committee. So let's talk about the process first. So the process for this type of a development includes multi-steps. It starts with the community outreach portion of it. We'll call it community input. This is an ongoing process. This wasn't just, there's 3 sessions. We did have 3 community advisory committee sessions, but it is an ongoing process, a continuous process of reaching out and communicating with the public to get comment and input. Starting clear back in 2019, in June of 2019, we did our first session and then 2 successive sessions after that. Following the community input period phase of the project, we moved, because we're going with the design build process, the next step would be to select a design build team, which we have done. The Absher and ALSC team was selected as the winner of a competitive process based on qualifications. Following that, we move into what's called programming. Programming takes the input from the community, from all of the stakeholders, and it converts it to building space. I'll go through that. Following that portion of it, we move through what's called schematic design, where we look at different configurations and options, and we come up with what we consider to be our either ultimate configurations or our series of ultimate configurations which meet the design intent. I'll go through these further. And then there's the design development phase, which is where we are at right now. We have not crossed over from schematic design to final design yet. That is awaiting your approval to begin. Following the initial phases of design development, we'll develop what's called a guaranteed maximum price, which is part of a design build process that keeps us in scope throughout the final design process. Once we get guaranteed maximum price, we go through permitting, final design on construction drawings and specifications, and then construction. So a lot of slides. I'm going to move through this quickly. So for the community input, we have multiple opportunities to gather community input from public partners. That includes the school district and other jurisdictions, private partners, that includes the tribe and other folks who in the local community. There's the community service partners, the YMCA particularly, and community residents and neighbors. We had 3 sessions starting back in 2019, and then once again in March this year and April of this year. So let's start with session one. That was again back in 2019. We had approximately 80 people attend that to gather input and recommendations. Momentum, of course, faltered because of the pandemic. So we essentially stopped progress following that meeting, but we did get a basis for further discussion. And when we picked it up back up in session two, we built off of that early work from 2019. So session two, I'm starting with kind of the results, the key themes that came out of that. Everybody wanted a pool. That was by far the most sought after feature, was to build a pool. But also opportunities to improve water safety through swim lessons and lifeguards, lifeguard roles, et cetera. A location for competitive swimming, and provide exercise and recreational assets.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We'll go back one just where you were. Pool is by far the most sought after feature. Is that among the people who were at that session?
Correct.
Okay.
Those 3 sessions pretty much.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So additional input that came out of the section session. The pool highlighted support for the school district partnership and an opportunity to become a water safe community. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. The expanded workout and multifunctional spaces are extremely important, especially to the Y, as they will allow flexible programming options that serve a range of needs and age groups. Programmable space is key for the economic viability of a facility like this. The theme of community and flexible spaces was very strong. Additional inputs, larger flexible space was articulated in different ways. So primarily they boiled it down, all purpose in design and capable of handling many different activities. Outdoor space expansion was also referenced. Expanded and additional amenities would keep people local more often. So that generally references the fact that people who go recreate are going to probably shop locally also. So this would probably encourage traffic and business activity up on the ridge. ADA access and inclusive design that would cater to all users. Examples being, ramps, lifts, and zero entry functionality of the pool. Noted concerns. The biggest one was that people were concerned that it would be too small. Don't build it too small. That's what folks were saying. The facility expansion should be future focused. Another concern would be the need to balance pool access, open swim versus swim team and swim lessons. And then affordability, of course, and access by non-members. Costs and fees and access by non-YMCA members was a clear area of concern. So based on that,
Can I ask another question?
of course.
Because that was one of the points that that Mr. Holloway brought up in his comments was the expense of it, and the numbers that he was using, $260 to $290 somewhere in there, for a family of 4 to be members and access the pool, and of course have access to other YMCA's in the region.
Yes.
I do know that for me that would be prohibitively expensive for my family. But are those numbers accurate?
I don't really know that. So that's something that we would have to have the YMCA answer. I do know that YMCA has programs for families who are economically challenged. So they do provide reduced fees for certain.
Which is fantastic.
Mhm.
But I'm just speaking personally. I don't feel like I could afford $280 for my family to have a membership to the Y so that they could swim. But I'd never go to the Y and say I'm financially I'm hurting too.
Yeah,
So
I really can't answer that question. I don't know the answer to that.
does anybody have an idea of what kinds of fees they would be charging for a family? Can we confirm or deny Mr. Holloway's numbers? Or
We can check on that because I'm planning to give this presentation to full council next week. And so we could have those numbers available.
But
Mayor?
We can confirm the rates, but also there's still a discount for Snoqualmie residents.
What is,
So-
what is that discount? Do you know offhand?
I think it's been 15, we'll confirm, like 15% or something like that.
15%?
But I would, I guess I would.
Speak
roll-
up for Joe.
I would roll it back a little bit in that at no time during this conversation were the participants asked, would you pay $260 a month to access what you just said you wanted? So this is another case where.
I
you
wasn't,
said,
I
"Do-
wasn't at the
do you-
session, so
do
I
you
don't
like
know.
Cake, and
Yeah.
everybody says, yes, I love cake. We gotta be careful to ask that other part of the question, and would you pay $1.220 a slice? But proceed on.
Our city minister has his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
I also want to point out that the expanded operating agreement to accommodate any pool operations is still under negotiation. Nothing is final, so our efforts to impact, and gain access for non-residents, none of that's set in stone yet. So the conversation is slightly preliminary.
Right.
Because of that reason.
And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that too, because whichever development option that we choose could impact how that agreement falls in. So following session 2, session 3 began focusing on specific uses of the facility. So the advisory,
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Johnson?
Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering if at some point in this presentation, if we were going to get to the survey, the community survey that was done. I want to say it was 2019. It was somewhere around there.
yes, we're still on that section and we're gonna get there. As far as the survey goes, actually, no, I did not. You're talking about the survey that was done, I think back in 2018 or maybe it was 2019. I did not.
Yeah,
include-
it was like by phone call, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I did not include that in this presentation. I don't have that information, but we could find that information and include it. I'm a little worried about the length of this presentation. It's getting kind of long.
It's an important one. It's an important one. I'm worried about your
He's got
your
a gender
Thanksgiving with
divide.
your family. That's what I'm worried about. You're rewriting this, so.
Okay. So we could, I could chase that information down and add a slide.
Thank you.
I do have the current survey results
From this year?
from this year. And it is the question was, the city adopted capital improvement plan includes an expansion of the community center and the addition of a swimming pool that would be funded through one-time sources of capital revenue and grants. Which option below best describes your opinion of the project? The city should move forward with the project was 66%. The city should not move forward with the project was 21%. I do not have an opinion or no preference was 13%.
Good. Continue. Okay. Session 3, specific uses. So advisory committee envisioned how the facility would be used and for what purpose. Approximately 100 ideas were generated responding to the question, given our review of community input, what are all the things you picture people using the community center for? So these could be boiled down or distilled into a few easy statements. 1, clearly use the pool. That was what everybody wants. Well, the majority of the people want as their leading priority. Learn new skills, gather and connect, a place for teens to hang out, exercise, community events, emergency response and safety, the shelter aspect, a space to socialize, an area for recreation, a place to find family support, and compete. So they use the whiteboard technique to get folks to essentially vote, type of survey, if you will. So based on those identified items, people chose in session 3, the 30 people that were there chose their preferred their preferred activity. Of course, 10 of those 30 people selected the pool as their primary objective in an expanded facility, followed by things like gather and connect, a place for teens to hang out. The emergency response aspect was big. Several people used the learn new skills and the exercise and, community events. So it's a little bit all over the board, but the pool was the clear favorite. So based on the community input, we moved into the programming phase after we selected our consultant, our contractor and consultant, of course. So our first programming meeting was reviewing what the community had generated for input and determining what our design principles were. And so based on that meeting, we identified these 6 key components, which are a magnetic hub, uniquely Snoqualmie, inclusive design, that's basically providing a space for all people to access, maximize flexibility, stewardship, which is responsible management of funds. That kind of goes hand in hand with maximized flexibility. And then high performance, of course, being integrated, sustainable, holistic design. So based on that, we move forward. Here, we're actually taking design principles and we're taking the community input and we're turning it into building space, right? This is an important function that architects are really good at. And so based on the identified activities and what we're planning, what we would like to do with this and what we want it to be, we identified areas for expansion. So these would be a lobby, lounge, reception area. This is the initial interface where people access the building. There's the administrative function, which would be office space for the people who run the facility. Community spaces, so a community room, a kitchen, child watch and kid watch, multi-generational spaces and multi-purpose spaces. Locker rooms are very important to these types of facilities, to pools and fitness centers. A locker room facility is very important, and how we configure those locker rooms is very important too. We can talk more about that, but and then there's the natatorium, of course, the pool. The natatorium is all things pool, so that it not only includes the pools themselves, but the equipment, spaces for the aquatics office, lifeguards, storage, etc. And then there's the fitness areas, the fitness center and group exercise fitness. From there, we look at each one of those spaces. Don't read this, it's not important. What really is important is that what we do is we identify the functions which take place in each of those to serve the community which we anticipate. So we're designing partially, we know the YMCA has done a good job in kind of identifying the area that can be served by a community center located in Snoqualmie. And based on how many people we could serve, we can basically get a good idea about what size to build each of those facilities based on the functionality that we want to put into it. So here, the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, that's all provided by the YMCA. That doesn't add to the cost of the facility. There's things like display requirements, fixtures or finishes and aesthetics, and then other essential functions and information. In this case, we have a lap pool where we identified what we would like in a lap pool. Here we were looking at 6 lanes. That would be the ultimate configuration. And then a recreational pool, things like lazy river and the other things. This will provide the maximum functionality for the most people, but we'll talk about that later. So programming. Again, don't read this. What we're trying to do, what this is an exercise to develop the spatial requirements for each of these facilities. So in this case, we have the building entry, we have the admin portion, we have the community spaces, the locker rooms, where we look at the number of people that we can serve and we identify the space requirements that's necessary. We take all of that information, of course, and out pops the ultimate design. Now, it doesn't just pop out. Obviously, there was an exercise in there where we looked at different building configurations, 1 story versus 2. How does it lay out on the site? We looked at 4 or 5 different configurations, and we quickly landed on this one because One, it fits the topography of the site best. We already have some facilities that are in there, meaning the existing community center. There's also the parking lot, and there's the areas around it. There's the slopes, and there's this little area, the amphitheater portion of it. So we wanted to kind of capitalize on the best things at the site and lay this out so that it was the least intrusive and took advantage of the natural spaces. This, of course, being the optimal design, is the biggest and the most expensive. Knowing that, we had a price. The price on this thing, the estimated price, it's a schematic price, so this is not a very sharp pencil, so to speak, but this was shaping up to be about $27 million. That was a big gap, because when we looked at the funding options, we saw how much do we have. That was close to $10 million in a pretty heavy lift to get there. So we looked at options. But before I move on to that, I want to continue on with this part. This slide basically demonstrates how this ultimate function meets the intended uses. So you can see we have use the pool, gather and connect, teen hangouts, and you'll notice where we place these dots, each of these dots represents places where we meet those needs. So you see this very high concentration around the pool and the locker room facility. Obviously the place is populated with dots, but the community spaces in the pool hit a lot of the identified needs from the community input. So again, we looked at the cost. We knew that we're going to probably have to develop some options to give ourselves options if we can't make the lift for the funding. So we went through this last time, and so I'm going to move through this very quickly. We looked at reducing cost with this by, removing the lazy river, for instance, right? The lazy river is a fairly high cost item. We looked at a one pool or a single tank option. We looked at combining the two pools so that the lap pool and the rec pool would be combined in a single tank of water, although with separate spaces. We had the 4-lane option, and we had what we called the nuclear option, which is essentially a single tank, and then remove all of the new fitness spaces and other activities that we would prefer to have. That one, of course, is most challenging because it does not meet the intended use that the YMCA says is needed to be economically viable. So that would affect our operating agreement with the YMCA. So we took those options and we put them into a decision matrix. This is a design tool that is used frequently to evaluate options, where we look at those things. Here again, use the pool, gather and connect, teen hangout, right? And then we break that down into finite elements, and then we score them based on how the community identified the preferences. Either way, it's what it is. It identifies how each of these VE options pop out and rank. And of course, the VE option, while the ultimate configuration obviously checks the most boxes, the VE option 1 was a close second, and VE option 3 was a close third. So each of those options was analyzed for cost, and as you can kind of see, it still gives us, yeah, I know you can't see. It's a challenge to actually make this in a.
No, you've done a great job. No, I didn't mean that as an insult here. I just need.
We had done this previously, and I can give you all this information in handouts so that you can look at it a little bit more closely. Yeah, you can't see that at all. I apologize.
Well, now I can't see anything.
Well, I can actually, I have slides where I can expand on this a little bit more after the presentation.
Up here that you were talking about?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can see
so
the
we're
different
we're
costs.
talking 25.3 for option 1, 23.1 for option 2, 25.4 for option 3, 24.7 for option 4, and 20.8 for option 5.
Too much, or too much.
Exactly. So, as you all know, the hoped funding from the school district fell through. So we cannot count on anything from the school district. That happened last week. So what I'm going to show you is a quick pivot to where we're at now. And I do not have a great deal of information to show you other than what we've managed to accomplish in the last week in looking at options to further reduce costs. So here we have the ultimate configuration. This still shows the 6-lane lap pool. It still shows the rec pool, but a phased approach where we essentially don't do any of the improvements to the existing community center. No new fitness spaces. We will leave the existing admin facilities the way they are, child care facilities the way they are, the new administrative functions, and then the walkway from the street. That kind of goes away, or we would do it as an alternative. We would actually price it and include it with our guaranteed maximum price, but we don't necessarily have to build that. We just want to get the cost to see what it would be. All those things all together comes to around $2.8 million. Right. So when you remove that, we're around about $24 million. Again, this does not meet the economic model for the YMCA. So this would affect our operating agreement with the YMCA. So keep trying. How about if we make a 4-lane pool, remove the lazy river, and try to stay with the 2-pool option and the phased approach? We can get the price down, not much. It doesn't save us a lot of money to do this, but a little bit. It reduces the building in size, reduces the pool size to some degree, but it doesn't reduce the complexity. So, and it does marginally reduce the locker rooms, but not much. So we dug further. Here's a combined option, 4-lane pool and a rec pool combined in a slightly different configuration that retains the lazy river and it retains the 0 entry. So this comes as close as we can get to meeting all of the identified functionality from the community input, yet reduces the cost as much as possible. And we can get this down to about $22 million. This, of course, does not include any of the other dry side improvements. So it's really just a pool. So that is where we're at this point. I can't really talk about funding. Again, we are doing some quick pivots.
Can you go back a slide?
Yeah, sure can.
Where's the $20 million option?
The nuclear option, that is the single tank, that's still available. That is still on the table. It's just it does not meet the functionality identified in the community input phase.
But you feel like this one does?
This one does much better because it has a lot of the things that are going to draw
So
memberships.
that sounds like a no.
No, it does.
Yeah,
it does. I mean, we haven't put this, so like I said, this is a quick pivot. We
right.
haven't had time to really put this into our matrix yet, right? And score it and to show you where it ranks. But if you look at the things that rank the highest, they're here, except for, say, the fitness stuff, right? So it's going to score better than the option 4, the nuclear option. It's not going to score as well as any of the other options that include all of the dry side improvements, right? Because it just doesn't have that functionality in it. Now,
But knocking out a couple of walls and laying down a new foundation, putting up some new walls, taking up some more space, so that we can put in some more exercise equipment. That seems to me that it should be significantly less expensive than digging out a pool, putting in all that infrastructure. So at some point in the future, we could save up, another $1 billion to put in that extra recreational equipment. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or at least a space for it.
Disappointed. This did not transfer over. But so if you see, this is a breakdown. This is what the contractor just sent me today, and I copied it over and it didn't copy very well. I missed this part. So my apologies, but you can see, so the admin area, right? So for, if you look at this, number 4.
Jeff, let me share. I can share the spreadsheet. Well, actually, I gotta reopen it,
If
but
you got the spreadsheet handy, you can.
I could pull the spreadsheet up.
Yeah. It's basically that slide, but there is, if you were to add it all in, so the admin additions, the adjustments to the childcare area, the reconversion of the old admin offices to fitness center, the outdoor what do you call it? The patio on the north side, and the 2 fitness studios. That all in comes, and also the walking path that comes up from Ridge Street, all in comes to about $2.8 million. And I have individual breakdown, again, very rough costs for what each of those features will cost.
From there.
Okay, you want to just take? Okay. There we go. So the admin additions, $360,000, right? And those are actually new walls. That's a new foundation and walls. The kids area, that's a big change. Fitness studios, the additions, 1.2 million. The renovation of the old admin, Dry Fitness, 350,000, and restroom renovation for the storage is about $19,000. And the site work, the additional site work to add in the path, about 100,000, 112,000. So all told, that comes to about 2.8 million.
But again, we could do these individual things at later points. So we save up $300,000. We go, okay, now you get your admin section. Then we save up another $1 million. Now you get your fitness studio.
Yep, that's correct. Not
well,
for that cost though.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, because that's future money. So,
Right, but that's the idea.
Yeah, correct.
Councilman Johnson, if I can ask you a question, what do you think the attraction would be to adding those things in later as city expenditures? Do you think people would be receptive to that? It seems like it doesn't seem like something that folks would be receptive to.
Oh, well, I'm just saying that we could do it. I'm not saying necessarily that we would do it.
So I did,
We would ask the community if they want it or not.
Mayor Ross?
I do have the, Councilmember Johnson asked for the 2019 survey, which is actually located on our website, but I can show you a few slides from it if you wanted to see that.
That'd be great.
Just have to figure out how to, need to share it. So let's see. So it said over 2/3 think that expanding the community center is a good idea. Among those, they say would be a good idea. Top reasons why, or it would be good for the community and that it would give kids more things to do. So good idea, 71%. And then it has the breakdown, good for the community, place for kids to go, not enough places to swim, need a pool, it's too small. More can be done. The community is growing. Next one. Given only a generic description of the recreation center, nearly 3/4 support the expansion with half strongly supporting it. Only a quarter opposed, so 72% support.
And a quarter knew what it would cost.
And then potential improvements, a lap pool for swimming lessons is the most popular element of the expansion, with nearly half saying that it is rated 7 to very high priority. A warm water pool, a lap pool for competitions, and expanded membership subsidizes are also very popular. So it just has a different priorities. So.
And Mayor, I noticed on there that the fitness and cardio, multi-purpose, getting back to what Councilmember Benson was saying, those are less popular quite substantially as compared to the pool. So not having the fitness center doesn't sound like it's a deal breaker. What people seem to really want is the pool section most.
That's true. Yeah, 52% wanted the expanded cardio, fitness and weight room. And expanded gym. So that is correct.
Which tells me there were a lot of YMCA folks at that focus group, right?
Well,
I think it was a lot of.
This is a random
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah.
In the community.
It's just a community survey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's available online.
And we don't have access to numbers of, or what percentage of the respondents were YMCA members already?
don't believe that was a question.
I think it was a question.
Not part of it?
Snoqualmie does have one of the highest penetrations of Y membership
Right.
of local communities.
You showed one slide that blackboard or whiteboard thing with the different options and that sort of thing. And I think the one that received the most was the pool.
Yep.
I just get concerned about percentages because it's always a skewed group that you're talking to or that decides to take a survey like that. Which doesn't mean that the numbers are unusable, but it also has to do with how you interpret the numbers. When you showed that whiteboard, the thought that I had was the pool got the most of any of the things, but it also was the first choice of less than a third of the respondents. So there were a lot of things on that board that were things that people were saying the community really needed. Like this stuff about being a magnetic hub seemed really huge. The stuff about having a place for teens seemed like that was compelling to some people, but a lot of that magnetic stuff. And I just wonder if maybe that's the thing that the community really needs, and we might be able to do that incredibly well if we weren't sinking all of the money into a pool, which a lot of people are also saying they really want. I'm not sure if the question was asked, how many do you want to pay for it?
Yeah,
that you get the same percentage.
I can speak to the process. Mike looks like he wants to say something.
Oh, who wants to go first?
Well, you have one more slide of information to share, right?
I got multiple slides just in my back pocket on this presentation.
But you
that
were
I can
gonna
show you.
You were gonna explain the cost of delay.
The cost of delay, yeah. I was gonna hesitate. I wasn't actually gonna bring that up because I think the numbers are somewhat suspect. But
Well, then
you can
let's
look at,
fine-tune them for Monday.
yeah, you can look at 3% inflation,
Yeah,
right?
Councilmember Benson, just a quick thing to your question about how many were willing to pay. That was one of the survey questions. And I think that the number went down to like 60 something % were willing to go for a levy lid lift or something in the survey. I'm not saying that that is an accurate number. I'm just saying that particular question I remember was in the survey.
Thank you. You were saying? You were talking about the cost of delay.
Yeah. Okay. So, so the cost of delay. So we have two things in particular. One is inflation, right? Just construction escalation right now is high. And so using a conservative estimate at 3%, a 6-month delay is going to cost us close to $800,000. A 1-year delay, if we delay it for a year, we're looking at probably like 1.2, I think is what it was. Then there's also the energy code changes. Now, the energy code changes, as we understand it, if we stay on schedule, but we are late. So if we delay 6 months, that will result in something like $250,000 to $300,000 at least for changes because of these energy code requirements. There are some numbers reported on that I want to ground truth before I really give them to you, because I don't know that I believe them. So, you know, for the most part, I would just say, look at inflation, right? I mean, a 6-month delay is going to cost us close to $1 million, and a year's delay is going to be over 1.5 million probably. Yeah. And so we're always chasing, we're always trying to land that aircraft on a moving target further and further. So it doesn't get any easier, right? If we can get it done sooner, the better. But as far as economically, it's just, we're talking about future money. If we delay, then you're going to pay for that. But if we don't have the money, then we can't do it either. So, you know, it's one of those things where we get multiple moving targets to try to hit. And I can't help with the funding, so I don't know. I can't write a check. So
Okay.
It's up to council. We did have, as far as economic viability, that's an important discussion. I think at council, we'll bring Josh in here to talk about that. Josh Sutton from the YMCA to talk about that. The reduced functionality equates to reduced memberships, equates to reduced revenue that the facility can generate. So the analysis, they did a kind of a pro forma analysis of memberships, and I can show you that. Can you give me my thing back? Share screen, I guess. Do I just take it over?
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry. Come on. Last. Okay, let's go down here. Apologize. Okay. So this is what we had done before, leading up to last week, before the school board bomb dropped on us. So the YMCA looked at each configuration, and he figured relatively conservative. These aren't exaggerated. He thinks these are real numbers. He met with multiple people at the YMCA who do programming, facility programming, and they came up with generated these numbers. So our ultimate configuration, they think, as it shows, swim lesson capacity, about 1,200 people, swimmers per week, 9,600 swimmers per week. Or wait a second. Yeah, 9,600 enrollments per year.
It's
Can't believe
1,200 per session.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I copied this over quickly, so I'm not exactly sure what I copied here. But anyways, they would have, you know, swim team, full practice and dual meets, memberships, additional 3,000 memberships. That is for the ultimate configuration. So that's not just pool, but that's pool and fitness center. 45% of which are families. And then they would add notes. Current channel allows for recreation, exercise, and therapeutic use. 2 tanks allows for optimal water temperatures. That's an attraction that sells memberships. You know, a lap pool that's too warm, people complain. If a rec pool that's too cold, also draws complaints. So it's difficult to find something that's just right. That's why the 2 pool configuration is optimal, but not a necessity. 2 tanks. Oh yeah. Then a large activity pool.
Wait a minute.
Mhm.
I got a glitch. And a community of 14,000, which currently has one of the highest penetrations of Y memberships. Keep that number 14, pin that, keep that in mind.
Mhm.
We think by doing the ultimate design here, we're going to get additional 3,000
No,
memberships.
I think that is the total anticipated memberships for the new facility, not additional 3,000, just 3,000 memberships.
Right.
And I don't know what the current
What's
membership
the,
is.
yeah, I don't know what the current is. Okay.
Right, and this includes the
go-
entire
go ahead. I'm
hinterland
sorry, go
area,
ahead.
right? So this is Snoqualmie, North Bend, and areas, Fall City, Preston, the areas around us that.
Not just drawing from.
That would draw,
Snoqualmie.
yeah, this would
But
draw.
still,
I guess the number I would really love to know is if we have any kind of projection on it. What is this going to cost the average resident of Snoqualmie who never steps foot in the YMCA? What will this project cost that person? And and frankly, what do they get in return for that?
That is part of our funding discussion, right? So if we proceed based on purely grants, then the $19 million that we have already, we have. So no additional cost. If we have to go out and bond or otherwise borrow money, depending on which option we choose, then there would be a cost associated with that, but that decision hasn't been made. So
yeah,
what I'm trying to show is what our gap could be
right.
and give you enough information to make a good decision. I think what needs to happen is that we need to identify an optimum configuration, identify the gap, figure out what our funding options are, and if we have to borrow, then we can determine how much impact that would have to the average resident.
You said something that if Councilperson Mayhew was here, he would have bristled at. So
Okay.
I just,
Yeah, correct
There's-
me, because
there's always an opportunity cost anytime the council
Yeah,
spends
it-
money. So I
Yeah,
feel honor bound to point that out.
Yeah, well spotted, because that's money that has been built up over the course of decades at this point, right? And residents of Snoqualmie do have
already.
they have a claim to that money. They have a right to say what happens with that money. And so if we're talking about, what do we got banked?
Well, we have about $15 million in the bank, and
So
then we have
15 million, that's over $1,000 per resident of Snoqualmie, if you just averaged it out. And I know that's not how money works, but if you work the money that way, it's over $1,000 per resident.
Mhm.
And if you're somebody who's not interested in this project, and that's not an insignificant percentage of the city, then I think it is completely understandable to ask, hold on, what else could we have done with that money?
Right.
Mayor, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Johnson, I can't see you. I don't know when your hand's up. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'm just processing at the moment. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Are you all done? Do you have more?
Generally, yeah. I mean, the only thing I would touch on is that, the YMCA looked at each of these things and determined, economic viability. Note, if it doesn't include dry side improvements, then they're gonna want to reconfigure that agreement. So there's an additional cost there
So making it cheaper might make it more expensive anyway. So
in the longer run.
really great presentation. Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Does that wrap us up on this discussion point? Got anything else?
No.
You're good? Okay, well, why don't we move to our next discussion point, which I believe was staffing. Was it staffing? Was it the next thing?
I think we were gonna talk staff, yeah. Yes, so with regard to staff, so we are actually on the park side, we are nearly caught up. We have one additional person to add, but we're gonna wait on that. And at least until next year. And then we have 2 people short in water and 2 people short in wastewater. But other than that, we're pretty well staffed up. So we're in good shape going into next year. We really do need another water person, but they're difficult to find right now.
What's the position that you're holding off on?
A parks position. Right now going into winter, it'd be nice to have that person, but we can survive without it. And we're waiting for the right person. It's really important to make good hiring decisions for us. We're not desperate to fill that spot, and we're not going to put a warm body in there. I need somebody who's pulling on the rope.
When do we get desperate to fill that spot?
We never get desperate. I just won't get desperate when it comes to
Getting the
hiring
wrong
decisions.
person Makes it worse.
Yeah,
than getting the right
right.
person.
Yeah.
I know.
Totally agree with it.
That's where Johnson is, his head.
Oh,
of-
Councilman Johnson.
Thank you. Yes, related to staffing, this came up last night at the planning commission and wanted to make sure that the committee members here had a chance to hear it. How are we doing in terms of being prepared for the winter, and do we have enough staff to plow the roads, that sort of thing?
Yes. Good question. Yes, we are actually following last winter. We got everybody trained. So that includes the engineers. I mean, everybody is now trained to plow snow, and we are in a better place for staffing. We have hired a few new parks people, most of which have their CDL licenses so that they can drive the larger trucks. So a lot of times what we're faced with, anybody can drive the smaller, the 1-ton trucks, but you need a CDL to drive the bigger trucks. And a lot of times we're short, we can only work them so many hours. So having some more folks with CDL licenses is a benefit for our resiliency with regard to snow plowing when the big storms come. So we're in good shape there. And then we are outfitting the vehicles now. We have a couple of trucks outfitted at this point, ready to go. And we have everything staged and ready to quickly adapt when we know when we suspect a snowstorm is coming.
Can you schedule that for not right on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And can councilmen volunteer for training on snow plows?
You talk to the union about that, I guess. Maybe.
You're welcome to ride with them. If you'd
A
like. to
ride
go out-
along, snow plow ride
I'd like
along?
to go out. I've done it. It's an experience.
I'd recommend
I do
it.
not,
Yeah.
I do not advise the old truck because the windows have to be rolled down and you get wet.
Yeah.
But other than that, I do recommend it.
Is there a truck with really good heat and hot chocolate?
No hot chocolate, but all the other trucks have really good heat.
They have good heat. Yeah.
You looking for the Santa plow?
That's what I was hoping for.
Wow, there you go.
But I did notice that Anna's in the room and I have been pushing for soft serve ice cream machines and I'll add a hot chocolate machine. to the
Okay,
list.
all right, good. You're good.
Just say no.
She has been
Put it on the CIP.
brutally.
Okay,
I-
what else do we have? Anything else in staffing?
Nope.
Okay,
think
thank
that's
you. Well, in that case, I think we've come to the end, right? My
Well, that's project status, but you've got.
project status?
You got 4 minutes.
Project status. Oh, geez, I didn't prepare anything. So Centennial Park right now is underway. Recommend you go look at that. That's actually coming together. I think we're pouring concrete. We poured concrete on Monday. We're pouring concrete on Monday. So and then once the concrete work is done, the new playground facilities will be starting. We'll start erecting those. I think we're planning to have that completed by Christmas. I think. Yeah. We hope to have it done by Christmas. So that's coming along pretty well. And then as far as other projects, we're winding everything else down. Sandy Cove is complete, finished under budget, which was terrific
Ooh,
considering
do
that
that.
we went
Keep
so
doing
fast.
that. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, that was really good.
How far under budget do you?
How far were we? $1,500.
Hey, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's enough for a hot chocolate machine
Hot
in
chocolate
the in the Santa plow.
Just gotta walk over there to get.
At least a thermos of hot chocolate.
So there's that. And then the Parkway, of course, we're still waiting for those push buttons, but other than that, that's done. And I think that pretty much sums up. We're getting ready to start with a sidewalks project over the winter. We have, I think, 40 different sidewalks to these are going to be repours where we're going to take out the old sidewalk, do primarily roots. And then we're implementing a new program to start grinding sidewalks. So initially we will do grinds. We can grind them once. As the roots continue to grow, then you can't grind them again. They just get too thin and brittle. So we just have to rip them out and pour new ones. And then when we re-pour these sidewalks, we implement some techniques to allow for the trees to grow without damaging the sidewalks. So we'll do what we call root bridging. And we have other techniques that we use to provide for a longer life of the sidewalks that won't be as susceptible to damage by the tree roots. So that's beginning, I think, while they are out painting, they've already been painting utilities and they're getting ready to start that, I think, next week. And they'll do that all winter long, and that's usually pretty seamless. You hardly see them. They're like ghosts. They move around the the neighborhood and fixing sidewalks, and you barely notice them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Right on time. Gal, nailed it.
So go back.